Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And I'll tell you guys what, I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm excited for this episode you guys are about to listen to. And as the title says, this episode's going to be my 2022 Philadelphia Union season predictions. And these episodes are always fun to record because it's fun to always go back after the season and listen to how I thought the upcoming season was going to be. And if you guys remember last year's episode and when I had the end of the season review with my sister and Ed Fagan, yeah, a lot of my predictions were just way off the chart, especially saying Sergio Santos going to finish with the most goals on the team. But more than this episode, I'm excited for the next 2 episodes for you guys. I haven't even recorded those episodes yet, but the guests that I have confirmed lined up, those 2 episodes are going to be fantastic. Probably a lot better than this episode you guys are about to listen to, in my opinion. But we are recording this podcast on Tuesday, February 15th. And you guys saw on Sunday, Jamiro Monteiro was traded to San Jose Earthquakes in exchange for $250,000 in GAM. And the Philadelphia Union also got a international spot, which puts them now with 2 international spots. And the Philadelphia Union can also get $200,000 in GAM in 2023 if certain performance metrics are met by Jamiro Monteiro with San Jose. And so, since I'm recording this episode on Tuesday, the way that the Philadelphia Union have been doing the press conferences, they have always been on Thursday. So, I'm sure Jim Curtin will get asked a whole bunch about Jamiro Monteiro on Thursday. So, I won't have any clips for you guys on this episode, but I will discuss my thoughts on Jamiro Monteiro being traded to San Jose. And then I'll get into the predictions. And I think, I don't know, it's crazy to me that so many people were caught by surprise that the Philadelphia Union did this move. It's a lot of people, a lot of my episodes, I talk about a lot of Philadelphia Union fans on Twitter, right? Because that's where I'm most active. And so when I say Philadelphia Union fans, more times than not, I'm talking about the fans I see talking about the Philadelphia Union on Twitter, not on Facebook, not on Instagram, which, I checked. As soon as the Philadelphia Union announced this move, all Philadelphia Union fans on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook were all just shocked. And I'm just not really sure why people are so shocked. I know people are shocked because they feel like the Philadelphia Union got ripped off. The Philadelphia Union paid $2 million for Jamiro Monteiro, and now the Philadelphia Union are only getting $250,000 in GAM. They can get another $200,000 in GAM, and they only got an international spot. Oh, the Philadelphia Union should have got a lot more. They got more for Kacper Przybyłko than they did for Jamiro Monteiro, and Jamiro Monteiro is such a better player compared to Kacper Przybyłko, which I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think what we're seeing on social media is you have your people that follow this team very, very closely, and then you have fans that, follow the team, but they don't follow the team as closely as others. And so you see on social media, I've talked about it on this podcast, the whole blow up in the locker room down in Florida last year between Jamiro Monteiro, between Kai Wagner, Ernst Tanner, Kacper Przybyłko got into it with Jamiro Monteiro. This all started because Jamiro Monteiro got subbed out early in a game. He wasn't happy. And then things just went south from there. You guys have heard my thoughts on that. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. It's in the past. But a lot of reasons why Jamiro Monteiro went for, quote-unquote, so little is because of that situation, because this was the last year of Jamiro Monteiro's contract with the Philadelphia Union. Yes, the Philadelphia Union had a contract option for the 2023 season, which if Jamiro still would have been here, the Philadelphia Union, in my opinion, would have picked that up for sure. But after that, Jamiro is a free agent. I know there's been some talks that, oh, well, Jamiro Monteiro wasn't going to re-sign with the Philadelphia Union once his contract was up anyway. But then Tom Bogert came out and said, no, he wanted a new contract from the Philadelphia Union. And the Philadelphia Union didn't feel comfortable giving out the contract that Jamiro Monteiro wanted. And so the Philadelphia Union, instead of taking nothing for Jamiro Monteiro, they decided this is the best offer they can get, because you guys might also remember, too, in the summertime, like I said, that whole situation that happened down in Florida where Jamiro Monteiro got subbed early and everything. All these reports said that Jamiro Monteiro was on the trade block. He was in talks to go back to Europe. A Western Conference team in MLS wanted Jamiro Monteiro. Then you have the whole visa issues with his family. I mean, there was so much being talked about. In August, I want to say this all went down. And there was just so much information, but so little of that information. It's like, is this true? Is it false? So you just didn't know what to believe, right? And I'm not saying you guys have to believe what I was told and everything about a whole fight in the locker room. You guys want to believe that, you can. If you don't, so be it. But at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Union took the best offer that they were going to get for Jamiro Monteiro. And I know fans feel like they got ripped off. I know fans say Jamiro was our best player, but in my opinion, Jamiro Monteiro wasn't the best player. Ernst Tanner came out and said that, we have a lot of depth in the midfield. It's an area of strength for us. And this move not only opens more opportunities for our young, developing players, but it creates 2 open international slots. And we know how expensive the international slots are going for. We saw last year when we needed an extra one how much we had to pay for an international roster spot. And so now that we have 2 open, that really opens the door of so many possibilities for the Philadelphia Union. And the one thing that I said on Twitter was, Ernst Tanner has said the last 2 months, he said it 2 times on record in press conferences. Once at the end of the season, thoughts between him and Jim Curtin, just how they thought the season went. And then 2, when Mikel Ora got introduced to the media, Ernst Tanner said that the Philadelphia Union, they're always looking for the best guy to get. And I know some people say, oh, well, this is just the typical PR BS that Jim Curtin and Ernst Tanner are going to feed us. And I'm sure on Thursday, too, they're probably going to say something similar. But you got to look at it that the Philadelphia Union got a ton of GAM for Kasper Schmeichel. They got more GAM for Jamiro Monteiro. They're going to get money this summer for Brendan Aronson. And the Philadelphia Union, I don't know if I would say they have the most money that they've ever had. Maybe they do. But one thing you can't deny is the Philadelphia Union have money. And having 2 international roster spots, that's huge for what the Philadelphia Union can do. And I know some fans might not believe Ernst Tanner's words that, they're always looking to get the best players. But I've got to imagine with the amount of money the Philadelphia Union have, that they either make a move right now for another DP player or something big happens in the summertime. And I'm under the impression that Ernst Tanner has his eyes set on a player that we don't know of, but it's a player that could potentially help the Philadelphia Union big time. I have no clue who that player is, but with the amount of money the Philadelphia Union have, if Ernst Tanner believes that he can get a really, really good quality player now that he has money to spend, I think he's going to jump on it, in my opinion, regardless if it's a midfielder, regardless if it's a striker. I kind of want to say another center back, but you have 3 really good center backs on this roster. So the only roster spot I don't see the Philadelphia Union upgrading is goalkeeper and center back. Everything else on this roster, in my opinion, is home cooking. And I know Ernst Tanner said, they have a lot of depth in the midfield, but if they can get a player in Europe, a player in South America, where if they didn't sell Jamiro Monteiro, if they didn't sell Kasper Schmeichel, there's no way that they could have afforded this player. But now that they have money, like I feel like regardless of position other than goalkeeper and center back, I feel like the Philadelphia Union are going to do something big. And probably not right now since the European window is closed. So teams don't want to let their best players go. And I'm not saying like, oh, the Philadelphia Union are going to go out here and sign the best player possible for in MLS. I'm not saying that, but it could be the best player the Philadelphia Union have ever had. And I know Mikael Orr is expected to be that because of the amount of money the Philadelphia Union spent. But why not have two players like that with the amount of money they have? I could see it, right? And maybe some people are like, oh, I can't see it being a striker because you have Julian Carranza and you have Mikael Orr, two guys that you just got in this season. Why would they add another striker? Well, Corey Burke's contract's up after this year, and Sergio Santos' contract is also up, I believe, after this season. No way at the end of the season do you resign both Corey Burke and Sergio Santos. So you're going to need depth behind Julian Carranza if you make that deal permanent, behind Mikael Orr. So the Philadelphia Union could definitely, in my opinion, bring in another striker, even though I know Ernst Tanner said he's happy with the strikers they have now. But I could really see them upgrading another midfielder spot, upgrading a striker, upgrading to a DP fullback. I know we have Kai Wagner, but in the summertime, and I'll talk about that. I really don't think Kai Wagner is going to be here, but look, just super excited with the deal that the Philadelphia Union got for Jamiro Monteiro. I know people, like I said, just think the Philadelphia Union got ripped off, that they didn't get enough for Jamiro Monteiro, but in my opinion, they do. And I talked about it last episode or the episode before that, maybe both episodes, where I gave my best 11, and I had Leon Flock over Jamiro Monteiro because I'll say this, right? I don't believe the Philadelphia Union would have taken this move if they didn't believe Leon Flock was getting better offensively, if they didn't believe the homegrown players are getting better. And so being comfortable in trading away Jamiro Monteiro, we know what he's done for the Philadelphia Union the last 3 years, regardless of what went on in the locker room. Jamiro Monteiro was a great player, but we have a lot of depth in the midfield, and the homegrowns continue to get better. If Leon Flock was getting better offensively, Jamiro Monteiro was going to find it very hard to play games for the Philadelphia Union. And I know, like, it's crazy to say that because Jamiro Monteiro is a DP, and usually if teams have a DP player on their bench, that means that was a flop. But I just look at last year's games played minus the playoffs. 40 games played from Leon Flock between CCL and MLS. He played in every single game. 37 starts. And you look at Jamiro Monteiro, 32 games played, 31 starts. And yeah, he missed some time because of the whole suspension, or you guys can go ahead and say because of the whole Jamiro Monteiro is looking to leave the Philadelphia Union because of a transfer. Whatever you guys want to say, believe that. But I don't think the Philadelphia Union expected Leon Flock to be as good as he was last season. And I've talked about it before where Leon Flock is the closest player we have to replicating Brendan Aronson's pressing numbers, his defensive numbers. And if you add the offensive ability that Brendan Aronson brought to the Philadelphia Union to Leon Flock, you really do have Brendan Aronson 2.0, in my opinion. And maybe that's crazy to people, but Jim Curtin's been on the record last season saying that Leon Flock's really good at taking players on one-on-one, and he wants to see Leon take players on one-on-one a lot more. So if the Philadelphia Union really do believe that Leon Flock's got better this preseason offensively, then they felt that they were okay with letting go of Jamiro Monteiro. So, I'm happy with the move, and maybe some of you guys listening are scratching your head. You're not happy with this move. San Jose, I think, are getting a good player. They have all three DP spots used now. I know they play a pressing system out there, so I think Jamiro Monteiro will be good for San Jose. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia Union had a lot of depth in the midfield. Quinn Sullivan's going to get a lot more playing time. Jack McGlynn, who I said, and I'll keep saying, was the best homegrown last year for the Philadelphia Union. You got to find ways to get Paxton Aronson in the starting 11 here and there. So Jamiro Monteiro was the odd man out, and that's all it was to it. So I'm happy with the deal the Philadelphia Union did, and hopefully we see a big splash in the summertime. If we get one before the summertime, that's even better in my opinion. But let's go ahead and talk about my predictions for the 2022 Philadelphia Union season. And so my leading goal scorers for the 22 season might catch you guys by surprise, but look, the Philadelphia Union, we talked about Julian Kranza, we talked about Mikael Orr. The Philadelphia Union addressed a major need this offseason by going out and signing those two strikers. And there is rumors that a potential third is coming sometime. Jose Riasco is that player I'm talking about, the young Venezuelan. When will it be announced? Who knows? But so many reports out of Venezuela said that the deal was done for $1 million, but nothing's been announced yet by the Philadelphia Union. Ernst Tanner was asked about this in December, and he said no comment. So I don't know. You guys do with that what you want. I think eventually we'll see Jose Riasco, but he's not on the roster yet, and he's only 18 years old. But again, you pay $1 million apparently for an 18-year-old. It's very, very promising, and it's saying a lot about an 18-year-old who just played his first season professionally in Venezuela. But, let's not talk about a player that's not here yet. Let's talk about the players that are here. And you go ahead and look at last season where the Union only scored 48 goals, which was only 4 more goals compared to 2020, where the Philadelphia Union only played 23 games due to a COVID-shortened season. And the Union in 2020 and 2019, they got a ton of productivity from the midfielders, whether they were assisting goals, whether they were scoring goals. But that is something for sure that they lacked in 2020. They weren't getting the productivity from the midfield like they were in 2020 and 2021. Big part of that's probably because Brendan Aronson wasn't here. Anthony Fontana had a fantastic season in 2020, did not in 2021. But look, with a full preseason under his belt, it's expected that Junior Gazdag will fill that burden that lacked last season in the midfield for the Philadelphia Union. Yeah, Daniel Gazdag was on the team last season, so I see people, you guys have, again, heard me talk about it on the podcast before, where I hate when people call Daniel Gazdag a flop, because he's not. The dude played over 4,000 minutes in a calendar year. Crazy amount of games on his knees. And now that he has a full season under his belt, Jim Curtin's mentioned it multiple times this preseason, that Daniel Gazdag is coming so much more fit than he did when he arrived to the Union back in May. And so because of that, I think Daniel Gazdag is going to be third on this list with 8 goals. I think number 2 is going to be Mikael Orr with 10 goals. And leading the Philadelphia Union in goals this season is Julian Carranza with 11 goals. Now, you can make an argument that the Philadelphia Union have 3 10-plus goal scorers. I could definitely see that, but I don't want to go crazy with Mikael Orr's goal numbers because he's joining MLS. He didn't get in with a preseason with the Philadelphia Union, so he's going to have to learn the league, learn the team, and that's why I'm not comfortable saying 15-plus goals for him. If he does, look, that is great. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I just don't expect it with his first season in MLS. And I know it might be crazy to a lot of fans that, oh, Julian Kranza, how can you say he'll score 11 goals when he only scored 3 goals with Inter Miami? But he's in a better system. You saw he scored 2 minutes in against Cincinnati. Now, granted, it is Cincinnati, and it was a preseason game, but Jim Curtin said that there's a special chemistry going between Sergio Santos and Julian Carranza, that Daniel Gazdag and Sergio Santos have a good chemistry going on between those two guys. And so I'm fully expecting that Sergio Santos and Julian Carranza are the 2 strikers that we start against Minnesota. And I'll talk more about that game next week. But I think it's just huge that we were able to get Julian Carranza in for a full preseason, that he's buying in how the Philadelphia Union want to play. He scored a goal 2 minutes in to his debut. Yeah, it was preseason again. But it's promising signs, and Jim Curtin's been nothing but high praise for this guy. I mean, comparing him to Tati Castellanos, that's the highest praise I feel like you can give a striker in MLS. Yeah, I know people will say Joseph Martinez or Raul Ruidiaz are better than Tati Castellanos, but I don't know. Tati's a really special player, and to see what New York City were able to get out of him last season, a little bit surprised that Tati's still with New York City, and to say that, yeah, Julian Franz is just like Tati Castellanos, I think that's huge. And yeah, it might be a little bit of pressure on Julian, but I think there was already pressure on him when Inter Miami paid $6 million. So coming in with a new team, a team that's going to create chances for him, I think he's going to lead Philadelphia Union players in goals in MLS with 11. But I think overall, I think the Union will score between 62, 63 goals this season. And I think it's very possible that the Union, like I said, have 3 players in double digits. And I think if Sergio Santos can stay healthy this season, I think you can have a real promising role on this team coming off the bench, going at tired legs. And, he wears down defenses. I think he'll get a lot of opportunities coming off the bench. And I know he's a player that's going to want to start, but having depth up top at the striker position, I think that's crucial for this game. And having a player like Sergio Santos fill the role that, we relied on El Senior the last couple of years, have somebody that actually has pace, that's a striker that can be a game changer. I think that's a role that fits Sergio Santos excellently, and especially for a player that just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's healthy for a couple games, or he's really not able to go past 62, 65 minutes. But, when he comes on the field, he gives everything. So I think Sergio Santos will definitely have a big season coming off the bench if he stays healthy for the Philadelphia Union, and I know that's a tough ask. And then look, just like I was talking about, it's okay that the Philadelphia Union let go of Jamiro Monteiro. I think with a full year under the belt last season, we'll see a ton of contributions in terms of goals and assists from the likes of Paxton Aronson, Quinn Sullivan, and Jack McGlynn. And I think any goals we get from defenders, I think that's an added bonus. I don't think 62, 63 goals is crazy. Maybe a little bit lower, but I can see this team adding a lot of goals this season with the pieces that they brought in during the offseason. But my assist leaders for 2022, and I think it's going to become very apparent to you guys who I think my Union MVP is going to be for this season. But you guys have heard me already sing his praises this episode. You guys have heard me sing his praises multiple times last season, but look, Daniel Gazdag is going to have a huge year for the Philadelphia Union. Just coming in so much fitter, having a better understanding how the Philadelphia Union want to play. Jamiro Monteiro was huge for the Philadelphia Union in terms of the press, but Daniel Gazdag, towards the end of the season, was pressing a lot more than what he was doing when he first joined the Philadelphia Union. Even Jim Curtin said that he's just understanding the pressing cues a lot better than he did last season, and so I really think Daniel Gazdag is going to have a huge season for the Philadelphia Union, and I think that Daniel Gazdag is going to be that 10 that this team's been looking for the last, 4 or 5 years, and we've seen players be here for 1 year and then they go. But Daniel Gazdag, this will be, I guess, technically his second season. It'll be a full season come May, but play last season, playing this season. So I just think Daniel Gazdag is going to have a phenomenal year for the Philadelphia Union. And so I think Daniel Gazdag is going to lead the team in assists with 10 assists. I think Olivier Baizu is going to have 8 assists this season. I think Kai Wagner, I think he's going to have 6 assists. I would have that number much higher up, but I fully expect Kai Wagner to be sold come summertime just because teams have been after him the last couple of years. We've seen multiple teams in England be linked with him, and I really do think come the summertime, a team's going to put in an offer that's good enough for the Philadelphia Union to accept. And yeah, it's going to suck for the Philadelphia Union to have to fill that void come the summertime. But like I said, Philadelphia Union have 2 open international spots, so maybe they go out and sign a DP left back. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But if Kai Wagner's here throughout the summertime, then there's no way they sign a DP left back, in my opinion. And you go ahead and you look at the players that the Philadelphia Union lost. Nothing really jumps out too much, in my opinion. Elsinio and Colin have not been re-signed yet. Anthony Fontana signs with a team in Serie B in Italy. Jamiro Monteiro, like we talked about, traded to San Jose. Kasper Schmeichel traded to Chicago Fire. You guys have heard my thoughts on Kasper. I'm not going to go ahead and just talk about that. And then you look at the players that they brought in. Julian Carranzo on loan from Inter Miami. Mikael Orr from Brøndby. And then Anton Sorensen signed to a homegrown deal this season. It's only 3 players brought in, but what more did the Philadelphia Union have to do to improve this roster? The big key for the Philadelphia Union was keeping the core group of players intact, and that's exactly what they did. To only lose 2 players from your starting 11 last season, I think that's huge. And for the Philadelphia Union to have the chance to, up until the summertime, get in a top 3 spot in all of MLS and the Supporters Shield standings, I think it's a real possibility. And that is the goal of mine, that the Philadelphia Union not only are fighting for a top spot in the Eastern Conference come the summertime, but they've got to be in a top 3 position in all of MLS come summertime, in my opinion. Now, let's go ahead and look at the 2022 Philadelphia Union schedule. And if I'm going through all this stuff like really, really fast, I do apologize. I don't want to have the episode last for an hour plus like a lot of my episodes. I just want to get my thoughts out there and then get done them. So as the schedule goes, I broke down the numbers, how many days the Philadelphia Union have in between each game. Now, some of these numbers are going to change because, remember, the U.S. Open Cup is back this season. So, you look at the days where the Philadelphia Union have 7 days in between games. Some of those might turn into 3 or 4 days between games because they got to some way find ways to put the U.S. Open Cup in the schedule. But the Philadelphia Union, they open the season up against Minnesota. I think that's a draw. Then they go to Montreal. I think that's going to be a loss. San Jose at home. I think that's a win for the Philadelphia Union. Because, look, let's keep in mind that the Philadelphia Union throughout their history, they typically start slow to start the season, and then as the season progresses, that's when we see the Philadelphia Union really start to pick things up. And it is weird looking how the Philadelphia Union did against Saprissa and CCL last season at the beginning of the season. But then they go to Columbus, they draw, and then Inter Miami and New York City at home, they lose both of those games. And it's like, how do you lose both of these games? But you go ahead and beat Saprissa 5-0 on aggregate. And I know, Saprissa didn't have any home fans, but still, Saprissa, with the players they had, are a lot better than the players that Inter Miami had on their team. And I don't want to talk about what happened against Inter Miami last season at all, but they lost. So a win against San Jose at home, and then the Philadelphia Union go away at New York City. I think that's going to be a loss. And then 14 days later, the Philadelphia Union welcomes Charlotte at home. I think that's going to be a win. Columbus at home. I think that's going to be a win. And then the Philadelphia Union go to Toronto. I think that's going to be a draw. Then the Philadelphia Union welcome Montreal. Philadelphia Union get Montreal out of the way early on the season, both of the games. I think when Montreal comes to town, I think that's going to be a win. And then the next 2 games are at Nashville, at LAFC. I think both of those games are going to be a loss, especially because between the Montreal and Nashville game, there's an 8-day break. And then between Nashville and LAFC, I know there's a 6-day break between those 2 games. And then the Philadelphia Union come home against New York Red Bulls. I think that's going to be a win, but as always, those games are always tight. And then the Philadelphia Union 4 days later have Inter Miami at home, which I think is going to be a win. But then the one part of the schedule I do not like, 4 days after that Inter Miami game, the Philadelphia Union have to fly out west to Portland. I think that's going to be a loss. And then from Portland, they have to fly to New England 6 days later. I think that's going to be a draw against New England. Then the Philadelphia Union, after 21 days, play Cincinnati. I think that's a win. Then they welcome New York City at home. I think that's also a win. And then at the halfway point, they are at Chicago Fire. And that's only a 3-day break between New York City and Chicago Fire. And I really think that is going to be a draw. It could definitely be a loss because of how fast of a turnaround it is, but I do think it's going to be a draw for the Philadelphia Union. And then 4 days later, the Philadelphia Union go ahead and go to Columbus. And then after Columbus, the Philadelphia Union come home. That Columbus game, in my opinion, is going to be a loss. 2 games in 7 days, that is terrible in my opinion. And so the Philadelphia Union, I mean, it's possible they come away with 0 points in those 2 road games in 7 days. I think they'll come away with a point. And then the Philadelphia Union have DC United at home. I think that's a win. Then the Philadelphia Union, 5 days later, go down to Inter Miami. I think that's a draw. And then the Philadelphia Union come back home because 3 days later, New England's going to be in town. That's a win. Then the Philadelphia Union fly right back down to Florida and have Orlando City. I think that's going to be a loss. Then at home, it's Houston. I think that's a win. Then the Union fly to Cincinnati. I think that's also a win. Chicago Fire come to town in August. I think that's also a win. And then the next 2 games, the Union go to Dallas and they go to DC in 7 games. 7 days, they have 2 games, both away. I think that's a loss for the Philadelphia Union in both of those games. I mean, to fly all the way down to Dallas and then you're going to fly all the way to DC in 3 days. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of travel, 4 days. But regardless, 2 games in 7 days, it's a lot for the Philadelphia Union. Then Colorado come to town. I think that's going to be a draw. Then Atlanta United come to town. I think that's a win for the Philadelphia Union. Then they go to New York Red Bulls. I think it's a draw. Orlando, I think it's a win. Atlanta United, the Union go down to Atlanta. And they go down to Charlotte. I think it's going to be a loss in Atlanta, a win in Charlotte. Then they end the season with Toronto at home. I think it's a win. And so I know I went over that. You guys are probably all confused and everything, so I'll try to break it down a little bit for you guys. 9 out of the first 17 games are at home. 7 out of the first 17 games are against playoff teams. 3 of those games are at home. The Philadelphia Union, 2 games in 7 days, both away at Chicago and Columbus in the first 17 games. It's not good in my opinion, but I guess it's similar to what the Philadelphia Union did last season when they went down to Orlando, then they went down to Miami, and that trip didn't go as planned. So I don't think the Chicago and Columbus trip is going to go as planned for the Philadelphia Union. I'd be happy with a point. And then another thing that strikes me is the last 10 games, there's 5 home games, 5 away games. 2 out of those 5 away games are against playoff teams, Atlanta United and New York Red Bulls. And then 3 out of 5 home games are against playoff teams. So it's going to be very, very crucial for the Philadelphia Union, in my opinion, to at least get 20 out of 30 points in the final 10 games. There is 9 games on 3 to 4 days rest. 6 out of 9 of those games on short rest are road games. So a lot of those short rest games away, it's possible the Philadelphia Union lose every single one of those short day rest games because you're flying, the wear and tear that it takes on your body flying, and then to play a game the next couple hours. So not happy that 9 games for the Philadelphia Union are on 3 to 4 days rest, but then especially 6 out of 9 of those games are away. Only 3 of those games are at home. Not excited for that at all. So I think in the first 17 games for the Philadelphia Union, if you guys probably weren't counting, you guys weren't writing it down, that is 8 wins, 5 losses, 4 draws, 36 out of 51 points in the first 17 games. And then in the last 17 games, I think the Union will have 9 wins, 5 losses, 3 draws. And again, that is good for 36 points out of 51 in their final 17 games. So that would be a new points record with 58. That would put the Union's record at 17 wins, 10 losses, and 7 draws. And I don't know. I mean, you guys hearing those numbers, would you guys be okay with a season like that for the Philadelphia Union? That means that I have the Philadelphia Union, and I know this isn't going to be right at all. I have the Philadelphia Union winning 15 games at home, only 2 draws, no losses. That's definitely my bias kicking in because of what it was like during the playoffs for the Philadelphia Union. You could definitely add a loss or 2 at home, but this team's definitely going to win 12 games at home, I'll say. At least 12 games. If the Philadelphia Union don't win 12 games at home, I'll be extremely disappointed. I think just with the way this team plays at home the last couple of years. I mean, anything less than 12 wins at home, I think that's a huge disappointment. And then on the road, the Union would have 2 wins, 10 losses, 5 draws. Not great, but we've seen the last couple of seasons the Philadelphia Union are a lot better at home than they are on the road. And, that is how most teams are in MLS, a lot better at home than they are on the road. So any point you can get on the road is always looked at as a huge plus in MLS. And so I'll go over my Eastern Conference standings, my Western Conference standings. But before I do that, so I think my 3 finalists for MLS MVP are going to be number 3, Daniel Gazdag. I think he's going to have a huge season. So if he gets 10 assists, if he has 8 goals, that's good for 18 points. And we saw Hani Mukhtar last season have similar stats to what I'm predicting Daniel Gazdag to do this season. And we saw he was a finalist for MVP last season. So I think it's very, very possible that Daniel Gazdag will be an MLS MVP finalist. Number 2, again, Hani Mukhtar. I think he's going to miss out this season on MVP. Should have won it last season, but I think the MVP this season for MLS, I think it's going to be Raul Ruidiaz for Seattle Sounders. I'm predicting him to be the MLS leading goal scorer with 23 goals. I think Seattle's probably going to win the Supporters' Shield this season. And usually, when a team wins Supporters' Shields, their players get a lot of accolades. So that's why I think Raul Ruidiaz is going to lead MLS in goals. That's why I think he's going to win MVP this season. But I do think the Philadelphia Union will put up a fight for the Supporters' Shield this season, but I don't think they'll win it. So before I do my Eastern Conference standings, I'll do my Western Conference. There's not really much for me to explain about my rankings for the Western Conference. It has to do with players that teams brought in, players that teams lost, new coaches and everything. So I'll do 13th to number 1. 13th, I have Austin FC. 12, I have San Jose, regardless of the deal for Jamiro Monteiro. 11, Houston Dynamo. 10, Real Salt Lake. 9, LA Galaxy. 8, LAFC. Then your 7 playoff teams would be FC Dallas. 6, Portland. 5, Minnesota. 4, Nashville. 3, Sporting Kansas City. 2, Colorado Rapids. And like I told you guys, I think Seattle Sounders will win the Supporters' Shield. And so for that to be possible, they have to finish first in the Western Conference. So that's how things go in the West for me. Probably going to get so many of those wrong. I think the West is going to look a lot worse. My predictions for the West is going to be a lot worse than what my predictions are for the Eastern Conference. But 14, I have Charlotte FC, which means that Cincinnati doesn't finish last finally. And I don't think, I know Cincinnati is not going to finish with the wooden spoon this season. I think it's going to be Austin. But at 13, I have Cincinnati. They added a couple good MLS pieces, but a lot of terrible contracts still on that team. Chris Albright can't build the team that he really wants in his first full season in Cincinnati. Brought in a lot of veteran MLS players. Like I said, a lot of good MLS pieces, but still have a lot of terrible players on that team. A lot of bad contracts that, Cincinnati just got to wait for them to run off. And so until that happens, I don't think Cincinnati are going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Number 12, I think New York Red Bulls. They have had the worst offseason out of all teams in MLS, in my opinion. They just haven't done enough work in the offseason for me to say that they're going to be back in the playoffs. They only signed Lewis Morgan from Miami and Dylan Nealis from Nashville, fullback, I believe he is. They lost Kyle Duncan. They lost their captain, Sean Davis. They lost Andrew Gutman. They lost Tom Edwards. They lost Daniel Royer. And they lost Fabio. And you go ahead and look. Those players that I just named to you guys, they lost a ton of starters on the roster. And to not replace them with pieces, I think it's going to be a terrible season for New York Red Bull fans. And I know last season, myself included, a lot of people didn't have New York Red Bulls making the playoffs, and somehow they made the playoffs. So watch New York Red Bulls surprise everybody once again. But in 11, I have Inter Miami. They got a lot of bad contracts off the books. Had a couple of low-risk European signings. Chris Henderson and Phil Neville are truly building their team. They're getting rid of the players that the old regime had on their roster. They're building the team they want to build. And so I don't think Miami will be close fighting for a playoff spot this season, but I think they're going to have the best season they've ever had in Inter Miami history. I think they're making strides to get into the playoffs, and I think it won't be this season, but 2023, I think it's possible. In 10, I have Chicago Fire. Ezra Hendrickson, in his first season as head coach for the Chicago Fire, they added Jordan Shaqiri, center back Rafael Shihas, and obviously they added Kasper Schmeichel from the Philadelphia Union. So I don't think Chicago Fire will be close like Inter Miami for a playoff spot, but I think they're going to be taking the right moves to go towards the playoffs in the future. At 9, I have Toronto FC, and look, I know they got Bob Bradley, and I know what kind of coach he is in MLS, but in my opinion, they didn't do a whole lot. They still have they have talent on the roster, right? And what happened with Toronto FC was crazy last season, where that team just looked so terrible last season. Especially you look at them bringing in a player like Jefferson Soteldo. He does nothing for Toronto last season. They wind up getting rid of him this season to, I forget what team in Mexico, some team in Mexico. They add center back Carlos Salcedo from the same team that they sent Jefferson Soteldo to. So they upgrade their center backs, they upgrade their defense, but they also lost Richie Laria, and then they lost midfielder Marky Delgado to LA Galaxy, and yet they got Jose Altidor's contract off the books after paying him $4.5 million to then see Josie go and sign with New England. But I don't know. I think defensively they're still going to struggle, and to lose Richie Laria, I think that's huge. I think that's probably underlooked by a lot of fans in MLS. He was a good fullback for them the last couple seasons, and so I don't know. I mean, how will they recover from that? Maybe better than what I think they're going to, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Number 8, I think Columbus Crews. They lost their starting left back, Milton Valenzuela. They still got a good roster, but I'm not sure it's enough to sneak into the playoffs. Now, I could definitely see them sneak into the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to, because I think from 7 onward, I think DC United, I absolutely love what Hernan Losada has done with DC United, making them a high-pressing team. You know, the players, they were really buying into the system last season that Hernan wanted to play. They sold starters Paul Areola and Kevin Paredes. But, you know, they traded for a veteran left back, Brad Smith from Seattle. And then they have striker Taxi Fountas coming on a DP contract during the summer. They're signing him on a free from a team in Austria. So I think DC United, they could potentially do some more moves, but to keep majority of the roster intact, like I said, the players buying into that system last season, yeah, I think DC United will sneak into the playoffs. 6, Montreal Impact. I think they were unlucky to miss out on the playoffs last season. The team has really brought into Wilfred Nancy's style. They traded for Alistar Johnson from Nashville, and they held on to Djori Mihailovic, who I thought, with the way he played last season for Montreal, you can even make a case, if he plays as well as he did last season, this season for Montreal, that he could be up there for a candidate for MVP. But I thought he would potentially be on the move to someplace in Europe, but they held on to him this window, and maybe he leaves in the summertime if he continues just to play really well up until the summertime for Montreal. But I don't know. Anything's possible, right? But just holding on to him and adding Johnson from Nashville, I think that's huge for Montreal. 5, I have New England Revolution. They're going to lose Matt Turner in the summertime. They already lost Tejan Buchanan because he got sold last season. Then he was on loan. Now he's officially off the team. I'm predicting they will sell Adam Buska come summertime. But, they added 3 MLS players in Sebastian Lletget, Jose Altidore, and Omar Gonzalez, who Bruce Arena has experience with. And so he's going to know how to get the most out of these players. I think by the summertime, Jose Altidore is going to be starting for Adam Busca once he gets sold. And I think Jose Altidore will surprise some people. Bruce Arena is going to know how to get the most out of him. And all 3 of these guys are going to want to play for Bruce Arena. They've played for him in the past, and Bruce Arena has always got the best out of them. So I think New England, because losing Matt Turner is going to be such a huge blow, I think losing Adam Busca will be a blow for them too. I don't think they're going to be in the top 3, but, it's very possible. Number 4, I have Orlando City, and in my opinion, I think this is the team who had the best transfer window because they added young South Americans and Cesar Araujo, and they added Facundo Torres to the roster. And then they also added striker Erkan Carr to replace Daryl Dike, all without losing much of their roster. And I know 3 players that have never played in MLS before don't know what MLS is like, but all 3 of those moves make sense for Orlando City. All 3 of those moves, I think, are going to work out for Orlando City, and I think that's why they're going to be number 4 this season. Number 3, I have Atlanta United. They made the playoffs under Gonzalo Pineda last season, who went 7-3-4 in his 14 games in charge of the club. They added players like Thiago Almeida, and they went out and signed a couple MLS veteran players in Bobby Shuttleworth, goalkeeper, and then they added Osvaldo Alonso, midfielder, who's played primarily for Seattle, but the last couple seasons he's been playing under Adrian Heath of Minnesota United. And then they loaned out attacker Ezequiel Barco to bring in Thiago Almeida. So with seeing how they played last season under Pineda, I think Atlanta United are going to be back. Number 2, I have New York City, because I'm expecting, just like New England, to sell Adam Busca. I think New York City is going to sell Totti in the summertime. But look, they have Herber coming back healthy from ACL surgery. They still have Tyus Magno. They have Thiago. Both of these guys are getting a full preseason under their belts. Yeah, they lost Jesus Medina. They lost Ishmael Shirati. They loaned James Sands. But I think, honestly, that you saw towards the end of the season that Alfredo Morales played excellent in the midfield for New York City. Keaton Parks was playing good until his injury last season, so he's going to be coming off of injury. And then they go ahead and added DP center back Thiago Martins from the J League. And I know a lot of fans are like, oh, why would you spend a DP spot on a center back? But I kind of wish this is more that MLS teams would do, because you see defense wins championships. You see how the Philadelphia Union are built defensively. And so why are the Philadelphia Union always in games? Because of how good their 2 center backs are, how good their fullbacks are. And, obviously you have Andre Blake in goal. So I think New York City will finish second. And then that means the Philadelphia Union, in my opinion, will finish first. Now, you could definitely switch Philadelphia Union, New York City, and Atlanta United 1, 2, and 3. You can flip them wherever you want, especially if the Philadelphia Union lose a couple more pieces in the summertime. But I think the Philadelphia Union just have enough to go ahead and really make a run for first place in the Eastern Conference this season. Now, what do I want to see the Philadelphia Union improve on this season? I want to see the Philadelphia Union start matches much faster. Only 5 goals scored within the first 15 minutes of games last season in MLS. So the Philadelphia Union need to put the ball in the back of the net, get the crowd into it early on, because we know how, these early MLS games are. It's going to be hard to draw crowds, especially in the cold. But if the Philadelphia Union put the ball in the back of the net early on, fans are going to be loud from that moment all the way until the end of the game if the Philadelphia Union can get off to a fast start. Number 2, I want to see the Union come out of the half more focused, because they had 8 goals conceded in the first 15 minutes of the second half. That is 22% of the goals that the Union gave up last season coming in that time frame. And then 45% of the goals the Philadelphia Union gave up came in the first 30 minutes of the second half. So the Philadelphia Union really need to start the second half a lot better than they did last season. But again, the Philadelphia Union were tied with giving up the fewest goals, second fewest goals in MLS with 35. So, as much as it sucked watching them give up 45% of the goals in the first 30 minutes of the second half, 35 goals isn't a ton compared to what a lot of teams were giving up. So just want to see the Philadelphia Union improve in that area. I want to see this team come from behind and win. The Philadelphia Union last season, when they conceded first, they were 0-6-8. So yeah, we did see a lot of come from behind draws from the Philadelphia Union, but I want to see those draws turn into wins. Not concede a lot of goals first, in my opinion. And so that's 14 games out of 34 that the Union conceded first with their 0-6-8 record when they concede first. Which, out of 34 games, 14 games, it's pretty good. But in my opinion, like I said, you got to turn some of those draws into wins. And then the Philadelphia Union, they were 0-5-2 when they trailed at halftime. I just want to see the Philadelphia Union make more adjustments in the second half and go for the win, not go for the draws, go for the win. And if the Philadelphia Union can do that, I think this is going to be a fantastic season for the Philadelphia Union. And then my Union yearly awards are Best Defender. I think it's going to go to Jack Elliott. Newcomer of the Year, Julian Carranza. Homegrown of the Year, Jack McGlynn. Biggest disappointment would be not finishing in a top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference. And then Union MVP, Daniel Gazdag. Now, if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And yeah, I said I didn't want this episode going over an hour. We're close to an hour. Haven't got there yet, but like I told you guys, I'm super excited for the next 2 episodes for you guys to listen to. One of the guys joining me is... I'll go ahead and say one of the guests' name. Callum Williams from Minnesota United. He's the play-by-play voice. Super excited getting him on the podcast to probably talk a little bit of Aston Villa, soccer in England, but primarily we're talking about Minnesota United, how they played last season, what to expect for Minnesota United on February 26th. Really looking forward to that conversation. And then the second guest, he has the best scoops in MLS. Once I get a date and time confirmed for that, that's going to be a fantastic episode. But hopefully you guys enjoyed my prediction episode. I'm sure there's a lot that people can say, oh, you're terrible with what your predictions were. But at the end of the day, they're my predictions. And I'm probably going to get more than half of these wrong. And I'll be happy to play clips at the end of the season and just hear myself sound like an idiot come the end of the season. But yeah, until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.